Good morning, everybody. It's Denise of Lazy K Mountain Homestead. Well, first of all, I just want to thank all my new subscribers and all my old subscribers and everybody that's been viewing our channel lately. We've really picked up, and I just want to thank you so much. I hope you'll continue to subscribe if you're watching. It's free to do it, and I really would appreciate it. It'll help keep our videos in the algorithms and in the forefront, I guess, because it's a lot of competition out there. But anyways, I just wanted to thank you guys for that. So let's get on with today's video. What I'm going to do is we harvested pumpkins over the weekend. Now these are Fairy Tale, Cinderella. This one's weeping a little bit because it fell. But we are going to harvest this, and we're going to go ahead and process it the way we like to do it. This is called a cushaw squash, and it's not quite as big as they normally get. I mean, they can get huge. We had a drought, I think starting in July. Then we had a little bit of rain, but nothing like we normally do in Tennessee. Normally our drought starts in August. So everything was a little bit shy on the harvesting unless we watered it. And where these were over across up the hill, I would take buckets of water up there, but it wasn't like I could use a sprinkler or anything like I did on the tomatoes and things like that. But they still did great, so I'm happy with the harvest and feel blessed that we have them. Okay, so what we're going to do, the reason I'm going to harvest these pumpkins is I want to make a new recipe that I was given, and it is called pumpkin coffee cake with cream cheese. And if you're a pumpkin lover and a cream cheese lover, oh my gosh, this is the recipe for you. It's going to be made in a springform pan, which is the same as you would make a cheesecake in. So I'm anxious to see that, because normally I would put it in a bundt pan or a tube pan. So we'll see how that goes. And it also has a Streusel topping, I think, and some pecans. So we'll get to that a little bit later. But what I wanted to show you first was, if you do have pumpkins, or you buy a pumpkin at the store and you're like, you want to figure out how to process this and make your own pumpkin, you need to know that you can freeze this. Home canning pumpkin is kind of frowned on because the pumpkin flesh itself is so thick. The heat of the canner cannot get through, and it can cause botulism. Now, I've done a lot of research on that because, you know, normally you can buy canned pumpkin at the store, like we all have in the past. But the process that they use is safe, and, you know, they've got the big giant factories, and I can't imagine the amount of heat. But anyways, I always freeze mine. So I wanted just to show you how to go about doing that the way we do. Now, Willis and I like to bake ours to soften it up, and then we put it through the food mill. Now, if you don't have a food mill, you can just take the flesh out, the soft flesh out after it's baked, and put it into a food processor or blender, and just get it really nice and smooth, like you would if you had canned pumpkin. You know how nice and smooth that is. So what we need to do first is we need to cut this, and normally he's home to cut these, but since they're not very big this year, I can do it myself. He's gone off trucking again. Of course, it's Monday, so he's in Jacksonville delivering cheese, and he'll be back up this evening sometime. So anyway, sorry about all the moaning and groaning there, but even though it's small, it's still pretty tough, which is what you want, because you know that's going to be a good, fresh pumpkin. If you have a pumpkin that is shriveled or something like that, you don't want to use it because it's already started to rot. Okay, so now I'm just going to kind of go in here and get this top out, you know, where the vine was attached, just like you would if you were hollowing out a pumpkin and you wanted to carve it for Halloween. There we go. Get that one there. And that'll release all these pieces of pumpkin. There you go. And there's your pumpkin. You can do this with any kind of pumpkin. Before I grew my own pumpkins and I lived in the city, shout out to Hampton, I would just buy pumpkins at the farmer's market or at Food Lion and just have one for the kid. You know, the kids, I had 3 kids, and they all would carve their pumpkins, and then I'd get one for myself and I would go ahead and process it. Now, I used to always boil my pumpkin flesh, but Willis and I figured out that if we bake it, it retains that nutty flavor that you like in pumpkin. And boy, this smells so good. Oh man, yum. Okay, so there is the fairy tale Cinderella pumpkin. Now what you're going to do, like you would if you were carving a pumpkin for Halloween, you're just going to go ahead and get out all of those seeds. And I save my seeds year after year. These are heirloom pumpkins, so I know the seeds will grow. And I'm going to save the cushaw too. It's also an heirloom. And I just go ahead and I just put it right there in a bowl. The cushaw seeds will go in a separate bowl because they pretty much do look the same. There's your pumpkin seeds. Now, there is a lot of seeds, and if you don't want to save all your seeds, you can roast them. Just to have a fly in here. Goodness, this time of year, the flies just want to come in, so excuse that if you see a fly. Spring and fall, it seems like the worst time for those little pesky varmints. Okay, now my hands are washed, so I am using my hands. Okay, so there you've hollowed out that pumpkin, and you're just going to put it in a baking dish, low profile. I just set it aside over there. I do line it with foil, and then I'll put a little bit of water in it, just in case, you know, if they're too dry. Most of the time they have a lot of fluid, but like I said, we did have a drought, so we'll see how these will be. So this pumpkin will probably give me about 2 cups after I processed it, baked it, put it in the food mill. I also have a food processor. Sometimes I do both, just to get that real nice silky consistency that we all love with pumpkin pie. And this is also going to be used for pumpkin muffins and the pumpkin coffee cake. Okay, so let me set those 2 aside. And let's work on this cushaw. Let me go ahead and get the seeds out of here so they don't get mixed up. This is a little lighter flesh. It's kind of a yellow. Of course, I haven't opened this one this year, so we'll see. Yeah, cut off the top. Aren't they pretty, though? If you guys didn't want to do that and you just wanted to grow these to decorate with, they are beautiful, especially when they're next to the pumpkins outside. Just something different. It's a squash, kind of considered a gourd, I guess. But around here, a lot of people love these instead of pumpkin. So it's not quite as, I don't know. I don't really consider pumpkin a strong flavor, but some people do. And I guess it's not quite as strong as a pumpkin pie. So for me, pumpkin is kind of mild. It's the spices you put in it that makes it have a lot more flavor. And that, of course, is up to you. Okay, now you can see how yellow, and that is normal. It's kind of a creamy color orange. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull these seeds out. And again, I'm saving them. Now, guys, I think it's really important that we save our seeds. Not everything you buy at the store is going to germinate the next year because you don't know if it has the sprayed on growth inhibitor on it. But I will tell you this. I have grown plants from seeds that supposedly had that growth inhibitor on it and not had any problem. So I don't know if that's just something people are trying to say, so you don't try to grow your own food. But in this crazy world we live in, I think it's important that we try to grow something ourselves. Okay, so there is the cushaw. And again, I'm just going to go ahead and put it in here. And I am going to bake this at 325 for a couple hours, and you just want it to be fork tender, and then you process it. So we will do that. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and start our pumpkin coffee cake with cream cheese. I don't know why I couldn't get that out. But anyways, I just want to go ahead and get these in the oven, and I'll be back in a few minutes, and we'll start our coffee cake. Hey everybody, well, we're back to make the pumpkin coffee cake with cream cheese. To make sure I got all that in there. Okay, so what you're going to need is a springform pan. This is what you would make a cheesecake in, but that's what this recipe is calling for. And I'm going to go ahead and spray it with some non-stick spray oil. Now, when you're going to use this in the oven, you're probably going to want to set it on a cookie sheet or some foil just to make sure nothing leaks out of it. I mean, they're pretty tight, but since this doesn't have a crust or anything, I'm going to set mine on a cookie sheet. Okay, now this cake has 3 different components to it. It has the cake batter, and it has a cream cheese layer, and it also has a streusel layer. Take a little bit of time. We want to get it nice and smooth because we're combining it with powdered sugar and vanilla. So into this, this is my mixing bowl. I'm going to add 8 ounces of softened cream cheese. Now I'm using the 1/3 less fat because that's all I had on hand, and which I think tastes just as good. I've made cheesecakes with it, everything. The 4 packs of the 1/3 less cream cheesecakes, and they've turned out great. Nobody's even noticed the difference. Okay, to that we're going to add 1 1/2 cups of powdered sugar. I've already got it in the bowl. And then to that we're going to add 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and come on over here to the mixer, and we're going to mix this till it's nice and smooth. Of course, I have to plug it in. I had something else plugged in there last night. I got a new battery-powered weed eater, so I had to charge it. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and let this get nice and smooth. It'll take a little bit, and then we're just going to go ahead and set that aside. Got it about on medium. And now I've got it at high. And you want to get it to a spreadable consistency, which it is getting to. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and just set that aside, and then I'll be back. Okay, I had to wash out my mixing bowl because I don't have 2 of them to get this cake batter going. Okay, so to this, I've got everything sitting over here, but to this we're going to go ahead and add 1 cup of butter. This is a very decadent cake, as you're going to see. So let me get the 1 cup of butter. And my recipe. So 1 cup of butter is 2 sticks. And that's at room temperature. You want to make sure it's at room temperature. Let me go ahead and put it in here, and then I'm going to go ahead and put the mixer on just to kind of get it nice and smooth itself. So I'm just creaming it. Okay, now to this, we are going to add our sugar, and that is, let me see, I got it right here, measured out, 2/3 cup of sugar. Let me just make sure I got it all, everything right. 2/3 cup of white sugar. I just have it measured out in this. Just going to go ahead and let that cream together. so it's nice and smooth. I'll have the directions in the description box like I normally do. And this is going to take just a little bit of cream. Let me go ahead and scrape down the sides. You know, I really like these new KitchenAid mixers, but I will tell you this. I had my grandmother's for years that had the bowls that were only this deep and a little bit wider. And you had to kind of scrape down the sides, but not like you do on these high ones. I even have the attachment that has a little rubber on it, and it still doesn't scrape it down like I would think it would 70 years later. Okay, I'm just going to have it on medium, maybe just a little slower than that. And we're going to add 2 large eggs. I'll add one at a time, just to make sure it's incorporated well. And then I'm going to add number 2. Just let them mix. And then we are going to let this cream together. And it should be nice and fluffy. Now you could do this by hand, but with this much butter, it might be a little bit more difficult to get it really nice and fluffy like you want for this cake. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and scrape the sides down again. So even though my butter is room temperature and my house is, I don't even have my air conditioning on today because it's pretty nice outside. It's in the 70s. It's not really melting, creaming like it should, I guess. Alright, there we go. I just need a little help. Okay. Now to this, we are going to add 1 cup of pumpkin puree. You don't want to use the pumpkin pie that's already made for a pumpkin pie where you just open this and pour it in a pie crust. You want to have the puree like we were talking about earlier that we were making. This is actually from the can. I didn't have time to make it myself. Do all that and let it cool and everything. So, but I'll show you how to do that while this cake is cooking. So if you do want to process some pumpkins, you know how to do it. And I think it's fun. I think it's really good to have pumpkin in your freezer in case you want to make something. Last year I made pumpkin cream cheese in the middle, pumpkin muffins with cream cheese in the middle. So this is kind of on a larger scale this year. I always try to make something seasonal. All right, we're going to go ahead and just let that mix well together. I'm just going to check my recipe really fast. Okay, that looks good. Let it mix a little bit more there. Okay guys, my video wasn't videoing. I'm glad I caught it in time. But what I did, I added 2 cups of all-purpose flour to my pumpkin mixture. And then I also added 2 teaspoons of vanilla. And then to that, I'm going to go ahead and add my spices, which I have chosen nutmeg, ground nutmeg, cinnamon, and cardamom, because I love cardamom. Okay, so I am going to add, now the recipe calls for cloves. I don't care for cloves as much as I care for cardamom. Okay, so we're going to just do a little bit, about a 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg, ground nutmeg. About 1 teaspoon. Now I always eyeball this. I mean, I can measure it out, but it's easy. Like I said, I'll have the recipe in the description box. That's about 1 teaspoon of cardamom. And then I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon. right, we've got all that together. That is it for the cake. We're going to just go ahead and mix that around. And this will make your batter a little bit darker with all those nice warm spices in there. Oh wow, that looks so yummy. All right, I'm just going to go ahead and let that sit for a minute. There it is. You can see the color. It's nice and thick. This is your cake batter. There we go. Put that over there. And let me see. Let me put a towel over that. Just so nothing falls in it. Okay, now we're going to turn back around right here. I'll close my drawer. Okay, so we've got our cream cheese filling right here. We have got our cake batter over there. So now what we're going to do is we are going to make our streusel topping. And it also goes in the middle. Okay, for this streusel topping, you're going to need nuts. I chose pecans. You can also have black walnuts or walnuts or any kind of nut that you prefer. If you don't like nuts, I guess you could just use, let's see, what could you use? Oh, oatmeal, you know, like the old-fashioned oatmeal, and just kind of grind it up in your food processor. It'll still give that little streusel-y consistency instead of a nut. Okay, so what this calls for is 1 cup of all-purpose flour. I've got over here. And we're just going to go ahead and put it in this bowl that I have. Okay. Stick that over here, and I'm going to grab a fork while I'm at it, because that's what I'm going to mix with. Just going to mix that around a little bit. That's fresh flour, so it doesn't have any lumps. Okay. Now to this, we're going to add brown sugar. We need a 1/2 cup of brown sugar. We're going to need 1 cup of nuts. I went ahead and chopped them up coarsely in the food processor. And that's what you would do if you wanted to use oatmeal instead. Some people have allergies to nuts. Our son-in-law does. So I can't make a whole lot of things with nuts, but I can use oatmeal. Kind of gives a little bit of a texture to it. And my granddaughter Kathleen, she's also allergic to nuts, tree nuts. It's very sad. So I'm just going to kind of mix the flour and sugar together. And you want to mix this pretty well. You can also use your fingers if you wanted to. It's up to you. I don't have a problem with using my fingers. Okay, so that looks pretty good. It's going to be a crumbly mixture in case you've never made a streusel before, streusel topping rather. Okay, see how that's really nice and combined there? All right, now this I need to add a cup of nuts, and I'm going to go ahead and use my 1/2 cup measure because I've got my other one indisposed. Okay. Now the rest of these nuts I'm just going to use for decoration after the cake is out of the oven. It's not much, but you don't need a whole lot. Okay, and to this I'm going to add some cinnamon. Okay. I need 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. Now I am going to have to use my fingers. To this, I need to add room temperature 8 tablespoons of butter. You can use margarine. Okay, that's 1 tablespoon lacking of a 1/2 cup. Okay. All right, so put that aside there, and we'll just put this in here. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and mix this together. It's going to be real crumbly. But you do want to use your fingers with this. I actually have never seen anybody make it with a fork or any other kind of tool. If y'all know how to do that, go ahead. I'm just an old school baker. Okay. Now you want to make sure you get this butter and flour and nuts and sugar all incorporated really nice, because you want it to be pretty equal. So when you spread it, it's just not like all butter or all flour. And as you can see, it's getting really nice and chunky if I don't throw any more on the floor. And I just kind of turn it over like that. Okay, that looks pretty good to me. And you see how it is? Just nice and chunky. All right. So, I'm going to set that aside. I've got a mess here. All right, so what we're going to do, set some more stuff over here. I've got a lot of stuff going on. Put that over there. We're back to our pan. All right. Now, let me go ahead and wipe my hands off really fast, and I'm going to grab the cake batter. Okay, we want to put half of our cake batter in our greased springform pan. And we did that earlier. And I think I'm going to get a different one of these spatulas over here. Okay, now we're just going to go ahead and add half of this to it. Hope you can see what I'm doing. Okay. It kind of is very thick, so you may have to take it out in dollops like I am right there, till it looks like it's about half. Okay, I think that's about half. And you're going to want to spread it all around. That's about half. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just kind of spread it all around the bottom here. I think you can see what I'm doing until it's gotten to all the edges and it's pretty well level. Not leaving any hills and valleys too much. I was going to make this when my friend Kathy was in town, but she's gone to Florida to visit her kids. So I told her, I said, I'm going to have to send you some. Okay, so we've got that pretty well even. Okay, now to this we're going to spread the entire cream cheese and sugar or vanilla. We're going to add all of that on top of that half of the batter. Okay, and we're just going to kind of gently mix it all around so it meets the sides and covers that whole batter. I've got my oven preheating at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm not sure what that would be Celsius. I'm thinking maybe 180. I'm not sure, but you'd have to look it up if you're watching somewhere you don't use Fahrenheit ovens like we do here in the States. Okay, so next we're going to take 1/2 of the Streusel topping. And we are going to be very generous with this because you see we do have a lot. 1/2. And you want to make sure it's pretty well level all over. Boy, that smells so good with that cinnamon. Okay, now we're going to come back to the cake batter. And I think I might use a big spoon for this. I think it'd be a lot easier than my spatula, although I use a spatula in a minute. Okay. I'm going to put little dollops of this everywhere. That way it'd be a whole lot easier to try to spread on top of that streusel topping. And if you make this, you'll kind of know what I mean. It's you're putting this cake batter on top of some pretty loose stuff there. All right. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is go back to my spatula and very gently just kind of spread that around. Do you see how slow I'm going so I don't disrupt my layers? There you go. And you don't want to really pull back on it because you'll pull back that streusel topping. And you want that just to be on the bottom there. So I'm just really gently putting this around. But you can kind of feel when that streusel topping wants to come back on your spatula. And if you see it, then just kind of go back the way you came, so you're not lifting that up. Okay, so I'm gonna get a little bit over there. All right, and so now, since I've got all that nice and spread, okay, put that in that little hole there. Let me lift this up so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. Say how nice and spread it is. Okay, and I've got my fingers messed up, and onto this we're going to add the rest of the streusel topping. Okay. Now you're probably thinking, oh, that's a lot, but what's going to happen is when this cake rises, it's going to, and the butter melts in this topping, it's going to kind of come over that. And there may be some that you still see, or maybe a lot, but it should just kind of envelop it. Okay. And once again, I have to wipe my hands. So I'm going to go ahead and put a cookie sheet right in my oven. Pull that. I got it on the middle rack, like I said, at 350 Fahrenheit preheated. And I'm going to place my, well, it looks like I probably need to wipe this down a little bit so it's not a mess. I always heard messy cooks are the best cooks, but you don't want it to look like it's a shipwreck or anything. So I'm just going to go ahead and wipe that down. And this is a clean towel, so I just used it to cover. All right, so here we go. See it? It's very heavy. I'm going to go ahead and put it in here on my cookie sheet. And I'm going to let this bake for about 55 to 65 minutes according to the recipe. And you'll know it's ready when you put a skewer down in the middle or a toothpick, pretty long toothpick, and it comes out clean. And then we will finish up the cake. So I'll see you in about an hour, guys. Okay, guys, as promised, I'm going to show you how to finish processing your pumpkin and your cushaw. You can also use this for any kind of squash, winter squash, like a butternut too. If you want to do that, we've made pies with butternut squash. It turns out really great. It's not so much of a pumpkin-y flavor, but it is the same consistency of custard. But before I get to this, let me show you something. The cake that we have in the oven. You can see I've cleaned my kitchen. Thank goodness, it looked terrible. If you want to make your or this recipe or any recipe in baking a little bit more figure friendly, diet, whatever you want to call it, sugar free. I've used Swerve before. It works great. I'm not getting paid by this. It's not a sponsor, but I just wanted to let you know in case you're thinking, oh, this has a lot of sugar in it. Yes, it does. The cake that I just made has a lot of sugar. Swerve, you can use cup to cup. So if it calls for like a cup of brown sugar, you can use a cup of Swerve brown sugar. It looks, packs, and tastes just like brown sugar. Let me see if I can get a little out. Brown sugar. Look, it's just like brown sugar. I haven't had any baked goods that I've made with it that came back and had an aftertaste like some of the sweeteners. Swerve also has white granulated sugar replacement. I don't have any of that on hand, but I do have their confectioner sugar. It looks just like powdered sugar, confectioner sugar. I'm not going to pour it in my hand because it is powdered sugar, but see if you can look in there and see. Powdery, yeah. And I have sprinkled this on strawberries and stuff over yogurt, and it just melts right in, and it's really good. There's no aftertaste. But if you want to use that instead, that's one that I do recommend And Willis also said that he couldn't taste the aftertaste. He's real funny about stuff like that. Anyways, that's what I wanted to let you know about that. Swerve if you're watching. Okay, so what I've got set up here is my food mill. Now, like I said, you don't have to use this. I like to use it. You can just use your food processor or blender. And what we're going to do, I just use a regular serving spoon, and I just dig the flesh out, or the meat out of the pumpkin. See how nice it comes out? Just away from the skin. And that's how tender. It's pretty much fork tender, maybe a little bit more. But this did really well. And I'm going to mix the cushaw with the pumpkin, because we do like the pumpkin flavor. But if you're not a real fan of pumpkin, but you like the custard pie or want something kind of traditional for your holiday meals, and you're not a fan of pumpkin like my Holly, use the cushaw. Okay, and I go ahead and I save my skins for my goats and chickens because they just love it. Okay, and here is the cushaw. Again, it'll just come right out with your spoon. Now this is considered a squash too, and it does have a few little the squashy looking strings in there, but they just, once you put it through the food mill or your food processor, they just blend right into a really nice silky smooth puree, and that's what you're looking for. And once you've got that ready, we're just going to go ahead and mix this, and let me see if you can see it come out. It'll just come right through here. It's kind of like a colander. I use this. I've been using these. You can get them right in Walmart. You can order them on Amazon. They're called food mills. Use that spoon to just. I use this for just about everything I make that we harvest, like grapes, for the grape juice, the plums, peaches. I make my applesauce with this. It's so easy. It's an old-fashioned tool. But, you know, I just think that it's one that shouldn't be forgotten. Also, I saw at Royal King the other day, and it's called a food mill, too. It's even, well, probably maybe the same age as a food mill, but it's the triangle. You set it up, and it's got a wooden dowel that you just kind of smash up against the sides, and it comes through the holes. It was called a food mill too at Royal King. I hadn't seen those on the market in years. You can get antique ones too, and they work really well. Okay, so that right there is done for that. I have all this to go, but I'm not going to make y'all watch me do that. Okay, here is our wonderful pumpkin. Okay, now it's nice and smooth. Let me just show you how smooth that is. Look how smooth that is. Really nice. That is perfect for a pumpkin pie. Okay, and what I do is I will put this in a food bag, a freezer bag. Getting ahead of myself. A freezer bag, I usually freeze it in 2-cup measures. But I do want to tell you, when you are using fresh pumpkin, when you go to thaw it out, there's going to be a lot of water. Even though there's not water in this right now, there's going to be some water that rises to the top. So what you're going to want to do is strain that out. And let me show you what I use. You can get these at Walmart. They're very fine mesh strainers. And you're going to want to put this over a bowl and just put your pumpkin mixture in there, just your pumpkin, and let it drain until it's really dry. Because if you don't, your pie or whatever you're using is going to be a little bit more liquidy than you're going to want. And that's just from experience, and that's from using fresh. Even though it's been frozen, it's fresh. The pumpkin that we buy at the store, it's already been strained, it's ready to go. But that is how we process our pumpkin and our cushaw. So I'm going to go ahead and close right here. And the next time you see me, we'll have that cake out of the oven. Okay, as promised, the cake is finished. It has a glaze on it, which is just 1.5 cups of powdered sugar and 2 tablespoons of milk. And I added a little vanilla. And I went ahead and just kind of did a drip icing, and then I just did a little lattice on here. And I sprinkled the rest of the chopped pecans just all over it. So it really turned out beautiful, I think. What do you guys think? My house smells so good. So let me go ahead and cut a piece. See how, there you go. We can see what it looks like inside. Now it is, I can feel a little bit of warmth. It's not completely cooled, but it was cool enough for me to put the topping on there. All right, let's see what we've got. Oops. It's as pretty as it is on the inside as on the outside. Now again, it's warm, so it may fall apart a little bit. All right, there it is. Oh my goodness. Let me bring it up to the camera so you can actually see the layers. There's a cake and cream cheese, streusel, cake, and more streusel. And it's really a nice height too, isn't it? Oh my goodness. Wow. Well, let me go ahead and have a bite so I can let you know what it tastes like. Oh. It's so good. I hope you guys will give this a try. You talk about fall wrapped up into one wonderful cake that wasn't that hard to make and just beautiful, I think, too. So have a great day from Lazy K Mountain Homestead. Please like, share, and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. And we'll see you soon with another video. Bye, guys.